The number one issue for young Americans this election is not student loans, not abortion or guns, but it's housing, okay? Housing. So what are they talking about? Housing, these young people. Housing affordability is the top election issue for Gen Z, according to a survey done by Redfin, with 12% of Gen Z respondents believe they will never own a home due to record high home prices, elevate mortgage rates above 7%, and expensive rent. Elijah De La Campa from Redfin noted the cost of starter homes has increased twice as fast as incomes. The median home sale price in the U.S. reached an all-time high of $390 May of 2023. Despite a strong economy with low unemployment and rising wages, many young Americans find buying a home impossible, with 42% of Gen Z receiving financial support from their parents for rent or housing costs. Holy shit. 42% of Gen Z is getting help from parents right now. While 90% of major metro areas saw an increase in housing supply, home prices in the South, particularly Austin, Texas, and Northport, Florida, are falling. Tom.
So, no surprise. But this is what's going on. When you see an article like this, it really just pisses me off, because this is just a little pebble of what is a bigger affordability crisis that's been brought on by inflation and printing a bunch of money. That's what's happened here. And now this is, remember I always talk upstream, downstream. You hear me talk about that. This is the downstream problem. This is the polluted little lake that's at the end of the creek and the river, and the creek and the river are bringing the bad water into the lake. And why is it bad water? Because it got polluted way upstream. This is what it is. Upstream from these people, while they were in high school, while they were in college, if they went to college, or serving a couple of years in the military, inflation was going crazy. We were printing money. We raised the price of assets. And now we have affordability crisis. So the number one issue for Americans when they say it's housing, well, what they're really saying is affordability in America. That's what they're saying. And they're saying currently the affordability is so bad that I got to think about getting support from my parents or living with my parents. That's what it is. And so if you let this in your mind be like, oh, it's the housing market, it's not. It's the leadership of this country, and it's the affordability crisis showing up as the number one issue for this group. The affordability is hitting them hardest in terms of housing.
Well, let me talk to my Gen Z friends out there. I almost going to give an MLK speech right now. I have a dream.
Here we go.
I have a couch.
I have a dream. Exactly. I have a couch. Guys, the American dream, it's still alive and well in America. The only difference is the American dream has changed. The American dream of your parents and your grandparents no longer exists. The ability to get a job and work at the same job for 50 years and get a pension and retire and get a gold watch and say, hey, great job, and get a house and get a 2-car garage and have 2.2 kids and have a dog and just live in the suburbs and just have a two-car situation and just work for the same company no longer exists. So stop crying about it, that everything that happened in the past, in the 80s and the 90s, when your parents were starting to make money, has changed. So rather than cry about it and bitch and moan, oh my God, I can't, do something different. What's the definition of crazy? Doing the same thing over and over and over again.
With no result.
And expecting the different results. So what's different? I always say this. The best thing you can do, especially when you're 20s and 30s, to you guys out there, women, you have a different objective, okay? For the men out there, I would encourage you to do the following. Understand this basic concept. The number one thing you can be doing in your life right now, before you have kids and a family, as you're working on your career, purpose over pleasure, purpose over punani, is understand this concept. Low overhead and high flexibility is the key to your life right now. Keep your costs low, keep it moving, keep it grooving, and keep your flexibility high, because you don't know where you're going to end up in the next 2, 5, 10 years. You might work for this company, an opportunity comes up, you might be in New York, you might be in Boston, you might go from Boston to Austin, all of a sudden you're in California, fuck California, moving to Florida, well, cost of living in Florida is a little too high, boom, I'm going to North Florida, keep it moving. So the cost of a house, when I started doing financial content in 2016 to 18, how much was the cost of an average house in America? $250,000. Okay, how much is the average cost that they say is a median house in America now? $400,000. What's the exact number, Tom?
$390,613.
So save that extra 10 grand, put that into to the stock market. What's my point? So if you can't buy a house, stop bitching about it and do something different. Go get a roommate, live with your girl, split the rent, figure it out. I get it. If you have low overhead, take all that extra money that you would typically be pumping into a mortgage payment, into taxes, into insurance, into maintenance, into HOA, and just invest in the market. Now, where should you invest in the market? Get a 401k, get a Roth IRA, get index funds, get crypto. Like Pat always talks about, non-duplicatable assets, get some cards. Just do something different. Because the reality is this, are interest rates coming down anytime soon, Tom?
No, but the end of this year, there's still going to be mortgages like 6.75.
Bingo. So rather than sit around being like, I don't have a house, just do something different. And that's what I've done. There you go.
You know, Rob, pull up what I just showed you, what I just texted you, if you could do that. After that fantastic Adam Luther King speech.
There it is. I have a dream.
Exactly.
Was just,
I can sum it up. Get mad and vote.
ALK, Rob.
The voting isn't going to do anything about the home prices, though.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a part of it here that if you can, you got to, Rob, close that and go to the bottom. There you go. Go a little lower. Okay, so check that out. So that's inventory versus price of existing homes. Now, that only goes till 2022, right? The blue shows median price of existing homes. Keep climbing, right? Jeez. The green is inventory, right? Is inventory. If inventory keeps going lower and lower and lower, prices go up. I mean, this is like the basic supply and demand, right?
Yep.
So the whoever becomes and the types of homes they're no longer building is starter homes. Like, it's almost like this. Like, imagine you come to my dealership. What is the average salary coming out of college? Just give me a number. Let's say $50,000. Okay. So imagine in America, all of a sudden, if you're making $50,000 a year, what apartment rent can you afford at $50,000 a year? You can live by yourself. What rent can you?
$1,500, $2,000.
Let's say $1,500 a month. Let's say $1,500 a month. Okay, $1,500 a month. What am I getting? Studio, one bedroom. I'm not getting anything crazy.
Yeah, it depends on what city you're living in, and you're getting a half a shoebox in New York.
Depending
you're getting
on the city,
a decent apartment in
two-bedroom
Oklahoma
or a studio. Is that fair?
Yeah.
2-bedroom or studio.
A 2 and 2 or studio.
Yeah,
exactly.
So this is the problem, Adam. That's a real issue that people who you're voting for, this has to be something that the younger audience, Gen Z, you have to be asking about. So imagine all of a sudden, the average kid coming out of college, rent, he can afford $1,500, she can afford $1,500. What is the average car payment you can afford when you come out of college?
Jeez.
You can't.
No, you can't afford. Just give me a number.
$200.
No, you're not going to find nothing at $200.
Yeah, you're not going to find a car payment below $500 and a new car payment.
Rob, what do you want to say?
But what kind of car are you getting? Are you going cheap?
No, forget about it. What can you afford?
any
Give me a
car.
payment.
Yeah.
You could probably afford around $300, which isn't going to get you
what I'm
anything.
saying.
When-
Okay.
If you're using the qualifying,
So to explain this analogy is the following. Imagine if 100% of dealerships across the country, you go to the dealership, you're making $50,000 a year, your rent is $1,500, the minimum cheapest car you can buy is $1,200.
Once.
You can't afford it.
Yeah.
So then you have to go, what's the alternative? Either Uber or get a bicycle or work close to his place. But there's not the jump doesn't go from 0 to 300 to 600 to 900 to 1,200. It goes 0 to what? 1,200.
Yeah.
What Gen Z is saying is, man, I'm coming out. I need something in between. I can't go 0 to a $400,000 house. What if I could go from 0 to a $200,000 house? This level is missing. That's the level that's missing. And builders, whoever's running for office, whatever in your state, your governor, Senate, you can talk to your Congress, you can even bring this up on Twitter with others, with presidents, is what are we doing to build more starter homes in cities? What incentive is being given to builders to build more starter homes? We need more starter homes. That's what's not being built for them to have the opportunity to buy something. Tom, you look like you want to say something.
No, what I want to say is bingo, exactly right, PBD. $50,000 after taxes is approximately on a national
40
basis.
grand.
No, 36, which is exactly $3,000 a month. And if I spent $1,200 on rent, $1,500 on rent, that's half of my take home. You know, that's above 40%. So now I've got 1,500 left. That's why we're saying the most you could possibly afford in there would be 300. Now you got to live on $900, $200 a week for food, electricity, all the rest of the stuff. Tilt, as they say in pinball, that model doesn't work. It's exactly what Pat's talking about. There's nothing left.
Let me ask you, what's a bigger burden? What's a bigger burden? Is the bigger burden boomers who are 62 years old, 65 years old, 55 and up, who have worked their asses up? Let me just go 60 plus. Your kids are 30 years old. They're coming out of college. They're 25 years old. They're coming out of college. The burden of parents to support younger kids, or is it the bigger burden for kids to support aging parents? What's a bigger burden?
It's a way bigger burden for the parents who are still taking care of the kids.
What do you think?
I think the bigger burden we're going to see is the kids taking care of the parents once entitlements get cut and as things can become more expensive, because there are far more boomers that need to be taken care of, and there are far more boomers in that boomer generation that don't have that don't have a responsible or don't have not responsible. They don't have an adequate supplemental savings to go along with Social Security and Medicare. The number of those versus the number of kids they had, that's, I think, PBD, I think that gets worse year by year. I think that's the burden. I think sometimes the kids moving back in may help. What if your son or daughter who's single moves back in and pays you $400 a month and takes you to your medical appointments and balances out some of your food bill? I guess there's a lot of boomers and there's not a lot of kids, and there's a lot of boomers without good savings.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I guess the question is this a short-term problem or a long-term problem? Because as much as you're talking about the boomers, there's also the boomerangers, the boomerang generation, all these Gen Z kids that were trying to, make something of themselves between 2020 and 2024. COVID happened, reverse, boomerang. Now they're living back with the parents. What was the stat here? What percentage of
42%, 40 whatever percent
are still basically getting funding from their parents? What are we talking about here? Obviously, the kids are still relying on their parents. Short term, undoubtedly. Long term, yes. People are living longer. Like now I'm helping my mother pay for stuff. But when I was younger, my mother would help me. It's just the cycle of life. But you actually brought up a really good point about how there's no starter homes.
Yeah.
So this is sort of indicative of how the middle class is getting squeezed. You were basically saying that there's nothing in the middle, right?
You need that. There needs to be a level
So exactly, I agree with you. But what's the metaphor here is that we always hear that the widening gap between the rich and the poor, the K-shaped economy, that the middle class is getting squeezed, right? The wealth gap. So you're either rich or you're either poor. Yeah. So if you're rich, you're not really worried about what rent is or what the mortgage is. You can pay 10 grand a month or 20 grand a month, no problem. But if you're in the poor camp, and you always say, who's in your ear? Where you're getting your advice from. If you're 20 years old and you're getting advice from your 52-year-old father or your 82-year-old grandfather, they're more than likely giving you the wrong advice. Why would I say such a thing? Because the world has changed and they haven't adapted. They're still telling you, well, you got to go to college and you got to buy a house and you got to do what I did. No, you don't. Do the exact things that they did because the world has changed completely. If you just do it, like if you're talking about, there's one problem that these kids all have, Tom. It's a 4-letter word, and it's called math. The math doesn't add up for them to buy a house, to have a car payment, and to actually live a life. Last point, we did a segment a week ago called Money Dysmorphia. Do you remember that? Money dysmorphia, how Gen Z is just completely aloof when it comes to their money. They see on social media all these kids balling out, having the time of their lives, and they're like, oh, I could go and afford a Mercedes-Benz. Bitch, you can't afford a Mercedes-Benz. You make 50 grand a year. You need to make $120 to afford that Benz. Now they got an $800 car payment, and they're wondering why they can't live their life. Because you're doing the same things your parents did, and you can't afford it.
A technical question. How do you know they're a bitch?
I've seen it.
How do you know where you categorically tell the entire PBD podcast audience, you call them, but by the way, he thinks that. The rest of us don't. The rest of us think you're a big dog, capable of doing something special with your life if you choose to.
10% of the people out there is people in the comments.
Let me. If there's ever been a time for you to find ways to get better strategies to recreate yourself so you can take your business to the next level in 2024, 2025. This is the time, because AI's speed of advancement is accelerating at pace that most people are not going to be able to follow unless if you're going out there getting these tactics and strategies from others. This is why once a year I host a conference called the Vault Conference. And this year we're doing it at Palm Beach Convention Center for 3.5 days. We go through a 200-page manual where you're filling in, you have case studies with other people you're doing case studies with on different issues that people are going through today. You got nearly 10,000 people in the room for you to network with, business partnerships, contacts with from 60+ countries, 180 different industries. And we'll have this going on at the Vault Conference in Palm Beach first week of September. And I've invited Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson will be there. This is the first time I'll be interviewing him publicly for 90 minutes. Some may get a chance to meet him backstage as well. Our whole crew will be there. We have a bunch of different surprises that we'll be making at the Vault Conference. But if you're somebody that's watching this and you're saying, wait a minute, all these people are making more money than ever before, why is wealth increasing for the wealthy more than it's increasing for middle and low income or maybe even upper class? Because they're getting the strategies and others are not. Because they're really realizing how to use the tools and others are not leveraging it. My biggest challenge to you is, if you're married, you and your wife. Last year, we had hundreds of couples attend the event together. Bring your wife, bring your husband, bring your business partner. We even got a group of people that are competing to have 50, 100 people event, because we'll be recognizing people that have the most representation from their companies on stage. This is an event I'd love for you to attend. September, first week of September, Palm Beach. For those of you guys that have already bought your tickets, go to vtmerch.com on the homepage, click on the Vault Conference event, get your hotels booked as well, because they're selling out quickly. You don't want to be somebody that has to book a hotel 30 minutes away because all the other hotels were taken. So if you want to get involved, if you want to spend this time with us, go on vtmerch.com, or Rob, the QR code, if you can put the image up there so they can see it. Either go to that QR code or go to vtmerch.com, get your ticket for yourself and your spouse. Let's spend 3.5 days together. And once you get into the community, you'll realize, man, I can't stop getting back into this community. We have so many people that come back every single year because every year it's new challenges, new issues, new things that are going on in the marketplace, and we always have something new going on. And I got a handful of big announcements that I'll be making only to people there. And by the way, for those of you guys that have over 100 Monects you've done, as an executive, like you've done a Monect as an expert, 100 plus, we're going to have a private room for you guys that you'll be with the CEOs. It'll be top-notch people you want to be networking with. Having said that, looking forward to seeing you guys all at the Vault Conference.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.